I gained so much confidence by knowing how much work I put into it. So I was ready for that opportunity. It just happened to come in the Olympic final, which I'm forever grateful for.
Welcome to Everybody Pulls the Tarp, the go-to podcast for high performers. I'm Andrew Moses, and each week I talk with Olympians, pro athletes, TV stars, Grammy winners, best-selling authors, CEOs, and other high performers to uncover their success secrets. Every conversation is jam-packed with inspiration and actionable ideas we all can apply to our own lives, personally and professionally. Get ready for a behind-the-scenes look at the techniques, processes, and mindsets powering the world's most successful people. Let's go. Hey friends, this week my guest is U.S. Women's National Team soccer legend Lindsay Tarpley. Lindsay is a two-time Olympic gold medalist, and over the course of her playing career, she made 125 international appearances and scored 32 goals for the U.S. Women's National Team. In 2004, at the age of just 19, Lindsay scored the first goal in the gold medal game of the Athens Olympics and helped propel the U.S. to a 2-1 victory over Brazil. And in 2008, she again played a major role in helping the U.S. win gold at the Olympics in Beijing. But listen to this. Before she went off to college, Lindsay had serious doubts as to whether she was good enough to play in the legendary University of North Carolina soccer program. But as you'll hear in our conversation, a pep talk on a recruiting call with legendary coach Anson Dorrance helped give Lindsay the confidence that she'd belong. Ultimately, she did decide to go to Carolina and won National Freshman of the Year in her first season. As a sophomore, she led the team to the 2003 NCAA National Championship and was named National Player of the Year. Lindsay's pro soccer career ended with a devastating knee injury shortly before the 2011 FIFA Women's World Cup. And today, she's an international keynote speaker and entrepreneur and passionate about helping others reach their full potential. She's the co-founder of Hustle Beauty, which she co-founded with a few of her teammates, including Leslie Osborne, who was a guest on Everybody Pulls the Tarp back in March. Lindsay and her husband are also the co-founders of the World Champion Soccer Academy. And Lindsay is also the co-founder of N-lite, a tech platform at the forefront of revolutionizing talent identification and management in sports. Lindsay and I caught up a few weeks ago to explore her career and the success secrets that have powered her success on and off the field. She shared powerful ideas on how to develop a winning mindset, build confidence, achieve ambitious goals, and so much more. We also explored youth sports and the role parents can play in helping kids utilize sport as a platform to develop powerful life skills. And in one of my favorite parts of our conversation, you'll hear Lindsay tell a remarkable story about how she transformed a weakness in her game into a strength, and how it ultimately helped her score one of the biggest goals of her career. I learned a ton from Lindsay, and I hope you take away as much from this conversation as I have. So, let's pull the tarp and get straight to Lindsay Tarpley. Welcome to Everybody Pulls the Tarp, Lindsay.
Oh, thanks for having me. I've heard so many wonderful things about your podcast. So I'm pumped to be here.
Thank you, Lindsay. Where I want to begin, as you know, I have had many conversations with so many of your teammates and fellow U.S. Women's National Team legends. And where I want to start our conversation is actually something that Christine Lilly shared with me in one of the many conversations I've had with Christine. She told me, and I'll never forget this, she told me that what drew her to soccer originally was the orange slices at halftime. So my question to you, Lindsay Tarpley, what drew you to the beautiful game initially?
Oh my gosh, I love that she brought up orange slices. That's so funny. For me personally, I was drawn to the game because I had an older brother that played. My dad coached, so I was kind of thrown in the car and went to practice with them and jumped in. And I think I was around 4 or 5 at that time, and I absolutely loved it. It just stuck with me. I had a lot of energy as a kid. My mom likes to joke that she put bells on my shoes, and when the bell sound stopped, that's when she worried. But as long as she heard the bells, she knew I was just doing something and being active. And so soccer really came into my life, and it helped me just go out there and have a goal in mind, but also be active, have fun, and most importantly, try to keep up with my older brother.
So when was the first time that you realized or someone told you that you might be a little bit better at this than everybody else?
I think that's part of what made me so elite is I never knew that. And when I say that, I was very humble and I took every day as an opportunity to get better. I went that way throughout my entire career. And I played for Anson Dorrance at the University of North Carolina. And I remember him recruiting me and me having a conversation with him saying, Anson, I just don't know if I'm good enough to play at UNC. And that was the humbling moment for me because I remember hanging up the phone and thinking, well, if I don't take advantage of this opportunity, somebody else will. So even though I was a bit starstruck by the opportunity, I went in there and prepared and ended up being freshman of the year. So it just goes to show you just never know what you're capable of. And if you take it one day at a time, who knows what you can accomplish.
I've heard you tell a version of that story before. And if my recollection serves me right, I believe that Anson Dorrance kind of responded to you and said, well, if there's somebody better out there that can play your position, you should tell me like who they are and I'll contact them. Is that true?
I love that you know the full story. Wow, you've done your homework. Yes, that is true. He said that to me and I hung up the phone thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to blow this opportunity by being naive that I can play there. So anyways, yes, I think Anson included that in one of his books. And it's a story that really defines who I am. And it also helps me realize that, I'm from a small town in Kalamazoo. So again, you take the mindset of one day at a time, trying to be the best that you can be. You never know what you'll be able to accomplish.
Was that something that he is very gifted at, is kind of coaching you on something without saying it directly? Like it seems to me like what he was saying there was, hey, if you're going to come play for me, you need to be confident. You need to believe in yourself. And believing in yourself starts with you. Is that kind of how Anson Dorrance would coach ultimately once you got to Chapel Hill and got to work with him every single day?
Oh, geez. I was so fortunate to play for Anson. And he had a unique ability to bring out the best in each player. So for me specifically, it was figuring out how to motivate me and how to maximize my development. And with that, he also nurtured my relationship off the field. So I became a much better leader because he invested in helping me learn how to lead and bring out my natural qualities that helped me organize and really make a difference for my time at UNC. I'm so fortunate to have played for him. And gosh, I could talk all day about how great Anson is.
There's so much that you've shared already that I want to unpack. But first, you talked about kind of developing as a leader under Anson and at UNC. What was it about your leadership ability before that you felt like needed some development and improvement maybe?
Yes. When I arrived at UNC, I was a very quiet person. And with that, my leadership style was more leading by example. So I like to put the work in and make sure that I was fully prepared. But then when it came to helping organize things on the field or training sessions and whatnot, I had to learn how to be vocal and I had to learn how to see things from somebody else's point of view. And one thing that's always stuck with me is, treat people the way they want to be treated. Like, you're not going to get the best out of every teammate by treating them all the same. So it's important to get to know your teammates and then invest in them to bring out their natural qualities. And Anson has an extremely unique way of being able to identify with that and then investing in each player and person to maximize their development.
The other thing, Lindsay, that you mentioned there that I want to explore a little bit further is this idea that it's almost like a paradox, right? Like it's like one of the ways that you became elite is by not knowing that you were elite. Like I think that's really interesting. How can someone, once they've identified that they're pretty good at something or somebody's told them that they're pretty good at something, how do they stay humble? Like how do they kind of check that at the door and kind of do what you were able to do because you didn't know you were elite? Like once they feel like they know they're already elite, if they don't have the gift of not knowing that they're elite, how do they humble themselves to be able to make sure they do the work, if that makes sense.
It's a very loaded question. I wish I had an easy answer for you. But I have two little ones as well, and they play a ton of youth sports, and we're in it right now in the best way possible. But I look at that situation, and regardless of if somebody is innately talented in something, you have to have a holistic approach to development. And if you are lacking in other areas, most likely as you get older, it catches up to you. So whether you're elite at 8 years old or you're hitting your peak at 22, it's the same principles that you learn through playing sports. And that's why my husband and I co-founded a soccer academy. It's World Champion Soccer Academy for that purpose. It's a holistic approach to development. So we help kids with, obviously soccer is the platform and why they're there, but we do mental training, physical preparation, nutrition, all the things that it really takes to invest in order to maximize their development. And I do think that nowadays things have changed quite a bit with youth sports. There's a lot of opportunities, which is wonderful, but it's also remembering why we're playing sports, and it's really about developing and creating good human beings.
I think that's so important. And one of the things that, I'm not a very athletic person, but one of the things I love about sports is I love about how sports can be a vehicle for learning ideas and lessons that you can apply to so many aspects of your life. As you think about kind of the different phases of your career, were there lessons that really started to kind of compound for you over time where, maybe you took a little something away kind of on that idea, and then, once you got to college, you took away a little more, and then once you were playing in the Olympics, you took away, like, what were some of the ideas that really started to kind of compound for you over the course of your career?
Yes, that's a great question. I mean, I think about my career, and one thing that I had a lot of success doing was having three areas that I knew I was always confident in. And regardless of if I was having a good day or a bad day on the pitch, I could always go back to those things that made me confident. And that helped me as I continued to get older to be able to always turn to those and say, okay, that is something I can turn to. And one of those is working hard. I always valued how hard I worked and the work I put in before the opportunity came to me. And I knew I was prepared for that moment. So those are things that I kind of tapped into, and it's something that I could control, which I really liked. To go a little bit further with this, I mentioned the soccer academy my husband and I founded. We also co-founded an app called N-lite Talent. What that does, it's an investment in individual potential. So when I say that, for youth sports, for example, it's giving kids the opportunity to say, hey, this is what I ultimately think I want to do, whether that's being a professional athlete, going to med school, getting into college, playing for my high school team. Maybe it's making a club team when you're 13 years old. It ranges, but it's important for kids to have that GPS model of what they need to do in order to try to accomplish those goals. In reality, time is short. I mean, I have an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old right now, and I cannot believe how quickly time is going. And so I feel like being able to give them this investment of using a tool for development, it's going to help them become the best human being that they can possibly be, with sport being that platform for development.
How do you envision kind of like breaking down kind of a goal into segments or bite sizes or phases, right? Like you talk about time being very short. Like, how do you look at kind of breaking down time, setting milestones? I know one of the things that you're passionate about is enjoying the journey. And you've almost reflected on the fact that throughout your career, maybe you didn't enjoy the journey as much as maybe you should have, and like reflect on these moments and how special what you were accomplishing was. Talk about that for a minute. How do you kind of think about that?
I love that you've done your homework. It's great. You're right on. I was so fortunate to have a lot of success in my career, but I also had a hard time living in the moment and appreciating that success. And part of that is because I always wanted to be better. I always wanted to do something better or invest in myself in different ways. And now I look at my own kids and I look at the opportunities that they have through sport. And now combining that with N-lite Talent, it's the little victories that you have to celebrate. So with this app, you can run assessments. So you could do an assessment in August and you could focus on three things, three areas that you want to improve upon. And then you could redo that assessment come March of the following year and you can see your growth and see your improvement. And then ultimately that helps you with come 5 years where you want to be. So it shows you the long-term goal, but then kind of peeling it back and thinking about the short-term goals that have to be accomplished in order for you to try to reach that stepping stone that you want to reach.
So to tie some of like the last few minutes together, the idea that you would go back to these kind of three areas that you were really confident in at times throughout your career, I almost kind of feel like it works together. Like when you're kind of pursuing a plan and then you maybe feel like you veer off course, or you wake up one day and you're not feeling your best, or you've had a few weeks where you don't see the progress that you want to see. That's when like Lindsay Tarpley would go back to those three things that you're super confident in, that you know can kind of like restart the momentum. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, absolutely. And so let me dive into that a little bit more. So it's important to know your strengths. And so when I say the things I was really confident in, those are my strengths. Those strengths were always there. But then it was important to have areas that I wanted to improve upon. And with that, you have good days and you have bad days, but it's important to remind yourself of what makes you unique, what makes you confident, how you got there, where you want to go. But those qualities are always going to be those things that give you the power to want to work on the things that you're not as good at. Because, right, let's be honest, it's easy to work on your strengths because you're like, okay, I'm good at this, I'm confident, like I can do this all day. What's hard is when you challenge yourself, because really adversity makes you stronger, but it's not always fun to go through it. But I do believe that when you're going through those hard times is when you come out on the other side a better player or a better person, or figuring out how to maximize your goal setting abilities. All of that holistically will help with the development of whatever somebody wants to achieve.
So Lindsay, and this is going to take me back to some of the research that I've done on you and your career. So anybody who's followed the U.S. women's national team over the past 20 or so years is going to remember the big goal that you had over Brazil in the gold medal game in 2004. But to like rewind that a bit, I've also heard you tell a story about arriving in U.S. women's national team camp and identifying, or someone identified, that one of your weaknesses or areas of development was the ability to strike the ball from distance. And that goal, for anyone who doesn't remember or hasn't seen it, that goal was from a heck of a distance. And I'm curious, like, could you just take me and everybody listening through what went into that? When did you identify it? Did somebody identify it as an area of development for you? How did you go about developing a skill set that could have changed the course of history for the U.S. women's national team in that Olympics?
I mean, that's my favorite moment of my career. So I love chatting about this.
I believe
but
it.
I will say, so when I arrived on UNC campus, Anson helped me realize that long distance finishing was something I needed to work on. That being said, I didn't have a chance to invest in myself until I got into the residency team program, and we all lived and trained in LA. That's what I mean by the residency program, before the Olympics. And I remember my coach at the time, April Heinrichs, pulling me aside and saying, Lindsay, you don't know how to strike the ball from distance. And she actually had one of those big exercise balls, that you can like do abs on, or
yeah,
a huge thing. So she brought that thing out and she was like, this is how you should be striking it. And this is how your foot should be. And she completely broke it down for me. And it was at that moment, I'm like, okay, I have two choices here. I can continue going with my career because, it's going to be an okay career if I don't learn how to do this skill. I mean, I was 18 years old at the time. Or I can completely invest in myself and learn how to do this and get better every single day. And I took that option. So I left that meeting with April. And every single day after that, I stayed after training and I worked on my long range finishing. But I had to start from scratch. I had to teach my body how to lock my ankle, how to bend my foot, just all of the basics that you would think at 18 years old, I probably would have learned. But I had to relearn and reteach myself. And so every day after training, I worked on long range finishing. Fast forward to the Olympic final, and I had an opportunity to strike the ball, I think it was like 24 yards out. And I just did it naturally because I had put that work in beforehand. So I think back to April and Anson, if I wouldn't have invested myself, I most likely would have missed out on the best moment of my career. But I go back to working hard and what are you doing to get better when no one else is watching? That's been my motto my whole career, is really making sure I was doing the work. So when I had the opportunity, I was able to maximize that chance.
So in that moment, she's got that big exercise ball out and she's teaching one of the greatest soccer players in the country at 18 years old, essentially like fundamentals, it sounds like to me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the exercise ball only lasted one day. Okay, let's be realistic here. But yeah, it was basically just to show me how to strike it. And then as soon as she showed me, I'm like, okay, now I can really go out there and try to fine tune this for myself. And again, I mean, I started from the very, very basics that next day, from 2 yards out, teaching myself to do it. And then over the course of time, I'd back up and then I'd add a keeper in. And I mean, I gained so much confidence by knowing how much work I put into it. So I was ready for that opportunity. It just happened to come in the Olympic final, which I'm forever grateful for.
The opportunity did come in the Olympic final, and what a moment. So just to like stay on this topic again, like, because I think there's so many lessons in this that, I mean, like I'm so happy about this story because, I mean, there's the idea of being humble and willing to grow and having a growth mindset and not being satisfied with being pretty darn good at something like you already were, right? I mean, you were at the U.S. women's national team residency, right? You had made it in many ways to a very high pinnacle of your profession. So there's the humble nature of it. And then there's the absolute willingness to put in the work and the attention to the detail. And like you said, doing hard work that nobody's really watching when nobody's watching. But like for anybody listening who's kind of tracking towards a goal or trying to live that growth mindset and have kind of and cultivate a skill in maybe an area that's not their strength or an area of weakness. I'm curious, like throughout those weeks and months as you were working on that, were there points where doubt would creep in? Were there points where you would make quick progress and then the progress would plateau? Talk about that for a moment.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, with anything, you're going to have good days and you're going to have hard days, and you're going to have days that you want to just forget about it. And you're going to want to have days you can want to do it forever, right? I mean, that's the nature of trying to get better at something. I truly believe that as you're going through anything that you want to invest more time in or invest in yourself, you have to find this middle ground. And when I say that, some days things are going to feel easy. Some days they're going to be hard, but you have to remember it's the balance of it all. And come 6 months after you invest in yourself in whatever form or fashion, then you have to look back and say, okay, look at how much I've done, or look at how much better I've gotten, or it's the journey that really starts to shape you. And that's where I go back to my academy and really teaching kids. It's this journey, but it's also holistic development, because the goal setting and investing in all pillars of their life is really what's going to help them be successful. At the end of the day, a very, very, very small percentage are going to be able to go on and play in college or be a professional athlete. But it's the skills that you learn along the way. They're really going to help them as they continue to grow and evolve.
I think that is one of the things, as I think about kind of like my journey as a parent, and my kids my oldest will be 9 this weekend and my youngest is 6. And I think there are so many challenges when it comes to parenting, right? But I think one of the things that just kind of sits in my mind so often is finding that right balance between something not being too easy for them and like something being like challenging enough for them, right? But like not pushing them too far, but not letting them kind of get comfortable with something being too easy. And how do you think about that as a coach and as a parent now?
Yes. I mean, my philosophy with that is you want them to have success, but you also want them to learn to fail as well. And when I say that, failure has to be something that can motivate them and not shut them down. For example, if a kid doesn't make a team or doesn't see the playing time they want or whatever it is, it's okay to be upset about that, but then it's important to scale it back and say, okay, why? And what can I do to help change the outcome of what I want to see? And I've done that throughout the course of my life, and it's just part of who I am. And now I'm hoping with my kids that I can teach them that it's okay to fail. It's okay. It's important to feel the emotions and the disappointment. But then what's most important is how you respond to that failure. Do you want it more? Or do you want to look at the situation differently or analyze it? And maybe that's where you go into goal setting. I know for my kids, it's important for them to be able to experience all of this now in all sports. My kids play as many sports as they can because I believe that they all teach you something different. And it's important for that exposure in order to continue to invest in individual development.
And are you looking at to try and understand kind of how they're going to react and how they're going to deal with failure? I mean, are you looking at body language? Are you asking questions? Like, talk about that for a moment.
Both. I think both are important, whether it's obviously if you don't make a team, for example, that's easier failure to identify because it's like, okay, I wanted to be on this team. Now I'm on this team. What do I feel? But how do I get to the team that I ultimately want to be on? How do you use that failure as fuel to continue to get better? You can also look at it if it's a small thing that it's still the same emotions when you don't succeed at something that you want to ultimately try to have success with. And it's important to identify that feeling and be able to turn those feelings into an opportunity for growth, or as I said, failure to fuel, in order to try to get kids to understand that it's okay to feel that. It's good for you, but it's also how do you respond? Because I do believe that when you go through that adversity, you come out stronger on the other side. But let's face it, it's not fun. It's not fun to go through those dark times, but it's important too.
What about like some of the kind of like transitions and phases, like different phases of your life, right? Like, I mean, you talked about some of the business ventures and entrepreneurial ventures, the N-lite technology, the academies. You also co-founded with some of your teammates, the Sweat Cosmetics, which is now has been since rebranded as Hustle Beauty. I'm curious, when you think about like the business and entrepreneur side of Lindsay Tarpley, were there some things that really surprised you as you kind of delved into that side of your career? Like maybe things that you thought were going to be easier than they were, or things that were more challenging? Or like, what were some of the big surprises for you?
I love this question because there were so many surprises for me. And the fact that I invested so much of my focus into being the best soccer player that I can be. When my career ended, I had a very significant knee injury that unfortunately ended my career. I realized that all of the qualities that made me successful as a soccer player transferred over into the business world. So whether I identified those or not while I was playing, it took me a few years in the business world to realize the way I am as a person and what made me successful on the soccer field then transferred over. And I still operate the same way. I'm still setting goals. I'm still working hard. I'm still trying to do what I can to be successful. And it's been a neat correlation for me that all of the qualities that I invested in as a soccer player, I now see in myself being an entrepreneur, a keynote speaker, being a mom, all of these things that make me who I am today. It's who I've always been, just used in different ways.
So then, is there one thing that you needed to almost unlearn, that something that really applied, that was like really useful for you as an athlete, that you've needed to kind of flip upside down and say, like, this is not serving me well in this phase?
Gosh, I laugh at that because being a mom, I mean, it's, being a professional athlete, everything was in my control with my schedule and what I was doing and how I was fueling myself. And then now transfer over to being a mom and in charge of 2 kids and making sure everything runs smoothly. I would say just that soul dedication and commitment into myself that it takes to be successful as a professional athlete. It's been really good for me now to be a mom and have that be my focus point and show me how to be able to take care of myself, but now invest in my family at the same time.
So are there things that you do when you want to, I mean, and when you're a parent, and anybody listening who's a parent will understand this, you're 24/7.
No downtime.
There's really no like locking in on yourself for a period of time. Like you're not in complete control. But are there things that you do to try and give yourself a chance to connect, even for a small period of time, with that focus, that Lindsay Tarpley focus that maybe can rejuvenate you in a way?
Oh gosh, I'm laughing because that's when I work out. So I work out everyone in my family, my husband, my kids know that's my time. It's where I just reset. It's something I do for myself. And honestly, it took me a long time when I was done playing to work out in a space that is good for me and not thinking about that working out as being a professional athlete. So I've enjoyed that transition now of being able to do it for myself, doing it for my mental health, and just making sure that I am taking care of myself first, because ultimately that impacts how my kids, my husband, and the whole family is.
It's like that analogy. I always say, like, that analogy that they give, like, on the airplane, like, you've got to put your oxygen mask on first in the case of an emergency, right?
So true.
That's what it comes down to. And I think we so often forget that taking care of ourselves is really the foundational piece to being able to take care of others, whether it's kids, whether it's relationships in our lives, whether it's friends, business ventures, different projects that we're working on. Lindsay, as we get ready to wrap up our conversation, I'm curious, is there something that you worried about aside from whether or not you were qualified to play at UNC? Because we know the answer to that. You were very, very qualified to play in Chapel Hill for Anson Dorrance. Was there something that you worried about a ton kind of early on in your career that you just wish you had not consumed so much of your brain power thinking about?
Wow, deep question. I think I would go back to the phrase of what if. And when I say that, you can let your mind run wild with what if I'm not selected for this roster? What if I don't do this? What if I don't do that? But it's really important to kind of put that aside. And I like to flip it now. What can I do? What's in my control? And that has really helped me. And I'm passing that on to my kids now, of the tangible things that you can control versus the uncontrollables. And the things that are uncontrollable, the what ifs, it's important to let those go. And I think I spent too much time focusing on that throughout my career. And I wish I would have focused more on the things that were ultimately in my control versus that.
Such a powerful message for us to wrap up our conversation on, Lindsay. That is such an important idea. I think that everybody can learn from, is spending more time focusing on the things that we can control, thinking more about what's possible as opposed to why something might not work. I think can serve us all well in sports and business, everyday life. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes with me this week. Lindsay, there is no question that you are a certified member of the Everybody Pulls the Tarp community, a tarp puller through and through. Thank you again for spending some time with me.
Yay. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining me this week. Be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you can catch all of our upcoming episodes. And if you are like me and want a world full of tarp pullers, then leave a review to help others find us. You can also follow me on Twitter at Andrew H. Moses. That's Andrew H. Moses. And be sure to sign up for my email newsletter at everybodypullsthetarp.com/newsletter. I'll share tips and insights to help you achieve maximum success and happiness. Today's a great day to pull the tarp. I am rooting for you. See you next time.